Scott Peterson pleading not guilty to murdering his wife and unborn son. So the Laci Peterson murder case likely going to trial. Scott's parents visiting their son behind bars, and complaints now from his former attorney that Modesto police were targeting Scott all along.
It was obvious.
How?
Just in how they were dealing with me, how they were dealing with Scott, how they were insisting on trying to talk to Scott even though they knew that he had an attorney and I was the attorney, and trying to do an end run around me. All those are telltale signs that they were trying to put a bullseye on his chest, and that their investigation was going to be focused at making a case against him. And that called for us to do our own investigation.
Okay, we have three guests with us this morning to talk about this. We're joined by former Texas prosecutor Nelda Luce Blair, also by criminal defense attorney Al DeBlanc and Henry Lee, who's been covering the story for the San Francisco Chronicle. And Al, I'd like to start with you about what McAllister was saying there. If you were defending Scott Peterson, is that what you would be using as a strategy to defend him, say, you didn't look at other people?
No, that's not going to be good enough. He's going to need a lot more than that. He might ask in discovery for the clue sheets, which is information provided to the police department about suspects, and he could argue that they have clue sheets that do not involve Scott, and they didn't follow up on them. That's his best shot, and then his other centerpiece is going to be, this is a circumstantial evidence case. This is a death penalty. You don't want to convict someone purely on circumstantial evidence without something more direct and concrete. Okay,
let me go to you, Nelda. Do you think this is purely a circumstantial case, or might they have had to have some physical evidence before they got that warrant for him?
Well, the way they're talking, they think they have a lot more evidence than just circumstantial. That's the way they're indicating. And, you know, the prosecutors and police waited a long time before they arrested this man. So I really feel like they were waiting till they had all their ducks in a row, and that they feel pretty strongly about their case at this point.
Henry Lee, let me go to you. You've been covering this, no doubt, from the start. What do you make of the fact that it took until very, very recently for this arrest to be made?
Well, before they clammed up, Modesto police said they also looked at sex offenders, parolees in the area, as well as a couple of burglaries that happened right on the street there. So after they ruled those groups of people out, they then looked at Scott. Everything pointed to Scott, they said, and they very steadily continued to amass evidence against Scott through searches of his home, his place of business, and his vehicle. So,
Henry, were there any other missing cases like the Laci Peterson case? Any other missing pregnant women?
Not in the Modesto area. There was a case in San Francisco, but that predated the disappearance of Laci by several months. That was in San Francisco.
Right. Al DeBlanc, back to you, and to say that maybe police missed talking to some other people. Can that really wash? Because don't you immediately focus your interrogation, not interrogation, your suspicion, if you will, on the immediate family?
All of the evidence at this time points to Scott Peterson. You know, just a recent one that they came up with where people saw him out there with the boat on the water, and the water was choppy. You know, people don't take small boats out in choppy water. Matter of fact, there probably was a small craft warning out. That's, you know, something that needs to be looked at. Just one thing after another, but it's still all circumstantial. Right. And that's going to be, and I will tell you this, you can have somebody steals a car or commits a robbery, and a jury will look at that, and it's got to be proved beyond a reasonable doubt. But they really do allow for lesser evidence than they will in a murder case. They know that a murder case, and in this case, could mean life without the possibility of parole or death. They're going to want very good, strong evidence so that they are convinced that this is the person that did it. And on a circumstantial case, that's a problem.
But Nelda, to you, when we were just showing the pictures of what would seem to be evidence of Scott Peterson's double life, how does a jury react to seeing something like this, that he had this mistress who didn't even know he was married?
Right. You know, juries are just like you and me. They're just average, everyday people, but they're very smart in looking through what Scott's attorney is going to present. Perhaps he'll testify. And they're very smart in weeding through that evidence and determining for themselves what kind of person this man is. I agree that they're going to probably be more careful in a murder case because jurors realize they have a person's life, whether it's the death penalty or life in prison. They have his life in their hands, and they're going to weigh that very carefully. But I think that when the prosecutors are able to give out all of the evidence that they have and present it before a jury, I think that these prosecutors and this police department has been very careful in this. Let me also mention, too, that, you know, this defense of, well, you didn't look at everyone else, that's in law what we call the Saudi defense. Some other dude did it. And that's the last resort of any defendant. Well, it wasn't me, it was someone else when they don't have anything else to say.
Yeah. Al, what else might you have to say if you were going to defend Scott Peterson?
Well, my biggest argument would be that the lack of direct evidence tying him to this case, hair, fiber, or trace evidence that should be there. Now, most of us know, watching cases over a period of time and programs, that hair, fiber, and trace evidence, blood, etc., is almost always left behind. There's something that you're going to transfer, and they don't really have that in this case. However, for Scott, there is a lot of explaining to do, like the concrete and stuff like that around his house. He's got problems. It is a difficult case for both sides. This is not an easy case.
Yeah. Henry Lee, back to you. And again, in your covering this, has any sort of lead theory emerged as to how Laci Peterson was killed?
There's no causes of death yet determined, yet according to the district attorney, Jim Brazelton, you don't need a cause of death or per se motive to indicate murder or homicide. There are different theories that might be brought up by the defense. Did Laci Peterson commit suicide? If so, the defense will have a very difficult time explaining how Laci ended up 90 miles away west of her home with her car still in the driveway. You know, if she also did not know how to swim, what is she doing in the bay? All these issues will come up, and alternatively, later down the line, it's possible the defense might say, okay, Scott did it. However, it was not premeditated as the district attorney alleges. This might have been heat of passion, it might have been an argument, it might have been an accident, and the defense could then use that theory to argue this is not first-degree murder, it could be voluntary manslaughter.
Henry Lee, Al DeBlanc, and Nelda Luce Blair, thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Much more news straight ahead. Nike putting on its best pair of shoes and taking a trip to the U.S. Supreme Court. We'll tell you why coming up. Also, the torture secrets of the Hussein regime are now coming front and center. Also, thousands of Shiite Muslims getting a chance to express their newfound freedom of speech in Iraq. All those stories and much more on the network that America trusts for real journalism, fair and balanced, Fox News Channel.